Thank you. Please take your seats. Everyone take your seats. And good morning. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Todd Polk. I'm the Deputy Commander for South Florida with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Jacksonville District, and I'll be the Master of Ceremonies today. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is honored to have you with us for the groundbreaking to mark the start of our first construction contract for the Everglades Agricultural Area Reservoir. On the drive in, you can see amazing progress that our partners with the South Florida Water Management District have already made in the Everglades Agriculture Area Stormwater Treatment Area, which will treat the water before it's released to the Everglades National Park and Florida Bay. Each project we construct provides benefits and will the building block for the next projects to come online. We're excited to begin our groundbreaking today, an incredibly important project, the Everglades Agricultural Area Reservoir. Can you hear me okay? I'd like to recognize a few guests that are here for the celebration today. Firstly, the Assistant Secretary for the Army for Civil Works, Mr. Michael Connor. Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. London Rotondo, representing Senator Marco Rubio. Mr. Adam Gilber, the Director of the Office of the Everglades Initiatives, representing the Department of the Interior. Former Florida State Governor Senator Joe Negron, who's been the driving force behind Senate Bill 10, which is the champion of the EAA Reservoir. Thank you. Of course, our active partners in the state of Florida, Florida Department of Environmental Protection, Secretary Sean Hamilton. From the South Florida Water Management District, Vice Chair Mr. Scott Wagner, Executive Director Drew Bartlett, Governing Board members Jackie Thurlow-Lippisch, Ben Butler, Ron Bergeron, Charlotte Roman, Jay Steinley, and Cheryl Meads. Go ahead. Alrighty. The Mayor from the City of South Bay, Mr. Joe Kiles. Eric Eichenberg, Chief Executive Officer for the Everglades Foundation. Captain Daniel Andrews, Executive Director for Captains for Clean Water. And Jake Foytick, Assistant Director for Government and Community Affairs of Florida Farm Bureau Federation. And now I'd like to introduce Colonel James Booth, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Jacksonville District Commander. Sir.
All right, good morning to all our speakers and all our distinguished guests that are here today. We really appreciate you coming out and celebrating the groundbreaking for the Everglades Agricultural Area A2 Reservoir. And certainly it wouldn't be an Army Corps of Engineers ceremony, either ribbon cutting or groundbreaking, without significant wind. It doesn't look like we're going to have the rain today, but we already lost the flags once this morning, so I think they're sandbagged up enough to take us through the rest of the ceremony. Hey, this is going to be the first contract for the Everglades Agricultural Area Reservoir, which is focused on the inflow-outflow canals, as well as going to be located right next to the stormwater treatment area that South Florida Water Management District's already building. And many consider the Everglades Agricultural Area Reservoir to be the crown jewel of the comprehensive Everglades restoration plan. The reservoir is truly going to be a game changer for the Everglades and for South Florida. We have a monumental project ahead of us. When completed, we will have built a 16 square mile reservoir covering the area similar to the cities of Stewart and Fort Myers put together. More than 17 million cubic yards of earthen material will be needed to construct the embankment that is 2 feet taller than the Herbert Hoover Dike and will store water about 23 feet deep, which is the equivalent of roughly 5,000 spaceship Earth balls at Epcot Center, as an example. That water will be treated by South Florida Water Management District's 6,500 acre stormwater treatment area that many of you saw as you drove in on the tour this morning. Absolutely great work by South Florida Water Management District with the construction of that facility. This project is big in every single perspective. It's big in size. The reservoir will be the biggest of the comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan reservoirs. And many of you have already been to the C-44 reservoir over to the west, and you've seen how big that one is. This reservoir and stormwater treatment area together will cover an area of about 17,000 acres. That's approximately 8 miles by 4 miles. It's a big investment. The total cost of the Everglades Agricultural Area Reservoir and stormwater treatment area combined is estimated at about $3.9 billion. And it will have big benefits. When Lake Okeechobee gets too high, we will have the flexibility to send water south instead of having to send it to the estuaries, which we currently do today. We'll be able to store and treat large amounts of water south of the lake, and then send that water to the rest of the Everglades and Florida Bay, when, where, and how it's wanted and needed right now. It's a critical tool in our toolbox that will enable us to improve the quality, quantity, timing, and distribution of water needed to reconnect and restore the Everglades. It's a giant step forward in reaching our ultimate goal, which is to get the water right in the Everglades. And building Everglades restoration also builds resiliency for South Florida. It will help reduce the frequency of severe fires and protect peat soils that sequester carbon. It will help increase the capacity of the system to store water and have it ready to send to the parts of the ecosystem that need it. The Everglades Agricultural Area Reservoir and Stormwater Treatment Area once seemed to be an impossible dream for many. But because of the great efforts of our partner, South Florida Water Management District, the efforts of many of you here today, and our team at the Jacksonville District, we're going to make that dream a reality. Okay, I'm going to take this opportunity to introduce our first speaker. The Honorable Michael Connor is the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works. He serves as the principal advisor to the Secretary of the Army on all matters related to the Army Civil Works program, which includes programs for conservation and the development of the nation's water and wetland resources, flood control, navigation, shore protection, and which are all important aspects of the President's climate resiliency priorities. Secretary Connor also serves on the South Florida Ecosystem Restoration Task Force. Please welcome Assistant Secretary of the Army, Mr. Michael Connor.
Thank you, Colonel Booth. It's always a pleasure to be here with the mighty Jacksonville District. Yeah, give it up, Jacksonville District. So fundamentally, I just have to start by saying we've got to keep meeting like this. A month ago, I was here in South Florida at the completion of the Herbert Hoover Dike Rehabilitation Project. That was a $1.5 billion project, huge investment, huge set of issues, under budget and ahead of schedule. And I think at the time, I remarked that it was an enormous achievement, but it was nothing remarkable for the Army Corps of Engineers. These massive engineering projects are a hallmark of what the Army Corps of Engineers has historically done for this country and will keep doing. Sometimes, like Central and South Florida project, maybe a little too successful, which is part of the reason why we're here today, but it's business as usual. But as I was thinking about that visit and those comments this morning, I was thinking that I was tempting fate in talking about business as usual with respect to EAA Reservoir. But we can't rest on our laurels because in the South Florida Ecosystem Restoration Program, the next big challenge is right around the corner. But the good news is today's groundbreaking is testament to the fact that the Army Corps of Engineers, South Florida Water Management District, all of the stakeholders, communities that are invested in these projects, they're up to the task. So congratulations to everybody for the groundbreaking here today. So as Colonel Booth went into the details of EAA project, it's clear it's not just another project, and that's with respect to size and cost and certainly importance. At close to a $4 billion project, including the reservoir and the STAs, it's the foundation for restoring the central portion of the Everglades. I won't go into all the details or the amount of earth that's being moved associated with the project, but the bottom line is this once again represents an investment that should be the heart and soul of every Corps of Engineers investment. How many benefits can we get for the dollars and the projects that we're conceiving and putting in place with our partners? And from that standpoint, we've got reconnecting Lake Okeechobee to the Central Everglades. rehydrating all those wetlands. That in and of itself is a huge benefit. Giving us another tool in the toolbox of reducing harmful releases to either estuaries. Great importance in this portion of Florida. And of course, everything we do here in sending water south will ultimately accrue in improving the health of Florida Bay. So the bottom line is that EAA Reservoir is foundational, fundamental, call it what you want, cornerstone of what I think is probably the most critical of all the South Florida ecosystem restoration goals, which is getting the water right. But big projects like this one have big issues. So the Corps, South Florida Water Management District, everybody that's been involved and supportive of Everglades restoration has to look at all the issues associated with each and every project. So from contracting to certainly the sensitivity of cultural resources sites. The Corps has worked in partnership with South Florida Water Management District with all the stakeholders, particularly the Seminole Tribe of Florida, the Miccosukee Tribe, and other stakeholders to address those issues as best as we can. And that has brought us here today. And so that work, that communication, that outreach, that ongoing effort, and it's not done, is a testament to what it takes to get projects of this magnitude in place. And I think I could speak for everybody in saying thank you to the Corps and its partners for keeping us on track. And from that standpoint, it's not only important, but it's appropriate to highlight and celebrate the fact that we're moving dirt and we're continuing the progress with this project and many other projects in the restoration efforts and the resilience building efforts that are really important here in South Florida. And of course, I'll end up where it's not the most important, but it's critical, obviously, to making any kind of progress. There are no issues that we have to deal with unless we have the investment and the resources necessary to move forward with these projects. And just even in the last half hour, talking to a lot of folks who have worked on this project since acquiring land in 1997 to the work in the 203 study that was led by South Florida Water Management District, handing that over to the Corps, getting in shape to get a congressional authorization in place. That all happened at a time when we didn't have the record funding levels that we have right now. So people were working their tails off, doing this important work, setting the stage with just the hope at that time that we would have the investment levels that we have now, not just at the federal level, but with our partners at the state level. And that level of work and commitment, when you don't know if it's going to pay off, is just a testament to the great importance of this project, the realization people had that if they did that hard work, that it would come to fruition. And here we are today. So I'm very proud to be here as a representative of President Biden's administration for the investment over $1.9 billion in the last 2 years for South Florida ecosystem restoration projects, including over $600 million specifically for the EAA project. And I can tell you, I'm not here to make any budget news. That would probably go against my own interests, but that will come soon enough, and I can tell you, you can expect continued robust support for the importance of this work that's being done here in South Florida. But even as I say that, having worked 8 years up in the U.S. Senate, I'm very well aware that the actual appropriations are the province of the United States Congress and the work that they get to do. So Representative Washington Schultz, thank you for your work and your support and your leadership. And that, with the rest of the Congressional Everglades Caucus, the Florida delegation has obviously done great work in supporting this effort, pushing the administration, multiple administrations, to get where we are today. So let me just wrap up by saying, someone much smarter, I'm going to stop giving attribution to the quotes that I use, because somebody always comes up to tell me afterwards that I got it wrong. So someone much smarter than me said, a great accomplishment shouldn't be the end of the road, just the starting point for the next leap forward. I think that speaks volumes to this particular program, South Florida Ecosystem Restoration, Comprehensive Everglades Restoration, and I look forward to the next leap and the next opportunity to be back here with all of you celebrating our next bit of progress. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Secretary Connor. Appreciate the remarks. Now I'd like to introduce Mr. Scott Wagner, the Vice Chair of the Governing Board of South Florida Water Management District and our partner in managing the Central and Southern Florida project. Please welcome me in joining Vice Chair Wagner.
Thank you, sir. Well, hopefully these flags hold. I hope the sandbags were put there by the Army Corps of Engineers and not the Water Management District's communications team. No offense. No offense. It is really wonderful to be here today. With and see so many familiar faces. We've been spoiled in certain respects. We are serving here at a time where so many projects are breaking ground, reaching major milestones, reaching completion, that in my mind, when I saw the calendar event come through for this, I said to myself, just another groundbreaking. But in reality, when I look down, this is not just another groundbreaking. This is one of the most important special projects, centerpiece, really the crown jewel of Everglades restoration and of SERP. And so having everybody here, seeing all these familiar faces to recognize this special event is just incredible. I'm Scott Wagner. I'm the Vice Chair of the South Florida Water Management District's Governing Board. I'm joined here by many of our other governing board members who have been just a special part of service to this state and to this region. I can't imagine it's been 4 years. It's hard to imagine it's been 4 years. We were appointed, all of us together, in a very unique situation in 2019, and time flies. It's remarkable to see how quickly time has flown, but it's also remarkable to see how many accomplishments we've been able to achieve. I will never forget meeting with many people after my appointment, many stakeholders from various entities and municipalities and interest groups and whatnot, all of whom wanted to have a conversation, wanted to talk, but the reality was each and every one of those conversations had a similar theme at some point. Be prepared to be disappointed. We were told over and over again that for many years and even for many decades, so many of the projects that had so much promise had really been ignored. They had sat collecting dust on the shelf. They had not been moved or activated or triggered. They had not been funded. People had sort of dragged their feet. There were obstacles put up both politically and otherwise. And the reality is that even though we were all these sort of eager little bunnies running around hopefully to get things done, we needed to be prepared to be disappointed. And I would not really respond to that, but I often thought to myself, well, we'll just see about that. And here we are, many months later, 4 years later. There are 68 projects in SERP. When we started, not a single one had reached completion. 4 years later, we have broken ground, met major milestones, reached completions on 50 Everglades restoration projects and other projects benefiting the environment. But this one, as I said before, this one is real special. This was the one that was at the center of everybody's mind. It was on the tip of everybody's tongue. The EAA Reservoir, you could not go anywhere or meet with anyone inside the district, outside the district, in our communities who did not mention the EAA Reservoir and its importance. You know, Lake Okeechobee is like the pitching mound, and C-44 Reservoir is like first base, and C-43 is like third base, but the EAA Reservoir is home plate. It's where everything starts and ends. It's the most important part of our Everglades restoration projects. It's really the linchpin, and it will give us an opportunity, as mentioned before. We don't have many options in moving water out of the lake when it fills up. You can either go east on the St. Lucie or west on the Caloosahatchee, it's a challenge to move the water south in certain times a year. And this EAA reservoir is going to change the game for water management. It is going to change the game for environmental restoration efforts. It's going to change the game for people who live down these vulnerable estuaries who have been threatened and who have been damaged time and time again. The ability to capture, clean, and convey water south through the EAA reservoir is the most important part of the SERP projects. It's nice to get out here with everyone because, you know, you see these projects on slides and, you know, PowerPoints, and it's like, okay, but you get on these buses to come out here to witness the scope of what the South Florida Water Management District and the Army Corps of Engineers are doing out here. I mean, it is thoroughly impressive, and I think I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the staff at the South Florida Water Management District and the folks at the Army Corps of Engineers for what they do out here. I mean, these are not small jobs. They get lost on slides and PowerPoint presentations. This is huge in scope. This reservoir is I'm told, about the size of Manhattan with none of the crime. This is one of the, this is the linchpin. And we're here today with so many partners who have shown up, not just today, literally, but figuratively for the Everglades throughout the years. I'd just like to mention Captains for Clean Water, who they get their first billing because they're providing lunch today. Thank you very much. The Everglades Foundation, National Parks Conservation Association, Audubon Florida, Florida Oceanographic Society, Bonefish and Tarpon Trust, Sanibel Captiva Conservation Association, the Everglades Law Center, Everglades Trust, and Conservancy of Southwest Florida. Thank you for all you do and all you have done. I'd also like to thank our new neighbors, Florida Crystals and Star Quarries, for all their help and for what they've done. We hope to be as good a neighbors to you as you've been in our initial stages of this project. I'd like to talk about the fact that this STA in the South Florida Water Management District is going to complete this stormwater treatment area this year. 2023, the STA will be completed. That is unprecedented. So much of the energy that you see throughout the people who work at the district and serve on our governing board, serve with DEP, serve with the state of Florida, comes out of Tallahassee and our governor, Ron DeSantis, who had the courage on day 2 of his first term to issue Executive Order 1912 that put the environment and Everglades restoration and clean water front and center and specific in writing with goals that he promised to Floridians. He put it in writing because he expected to be held accountable. And at the end of his first term, if you went back to 1912 and went down that list, you got everything you were promised and more. Did he kick his feet up? No, he buckled down. Second term, new executive order, 2306, puts it in writing, specific goals to deliver to the state of Florida and Floridians. And we've been promised $3.5 billion in funding, and this governor does what he says, time and time again. We've already seen that in projects we've got underway right now. Taylor Slough in Everglades National Park, water improvement. We have a SEP seepage wall in the 8.5 square mile area, which has caused so many problems in sending water south. We've underway with C43 reservoir, C44 reservoir, and the STA have already been completed. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize Senator Negron, who's in this audience today, who had the courage and had no fear pushing through Senate Bill 10, which really teed up everything that has flowed from. So thank you very much, Senator. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll close with this. It is not just big funded projects that are underway. It is big funded projects that are underway that work. All of these projects, when they come online, do what they are supposed to do. And they work with one another, and they sync with one another, and they are being put in place to create a trophy, not just for Florida, but a trophy for the United States of America. This is the most ambitious Everglades restoration project. It is the most ambitious restoration project in the world, and it's gonna get done, and it's gonna get done correctly, and it's gonna be something you all are very proud of. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Wagner. Next, I'd like to introduce Mr. Sean Hamilton. He's the Secretary of the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. Please welcome me in joining our fantastic state partner, Sean Hamilton. Thank you, sir.
Well, Colonel, as an Air Force guy, I would like to express my full support for your flag stability project as well. No offense to the comms guys. All right. Well, good morning. It's an amazing time to be here, and I think all throughout life we all have those where will you win moments. I think we need to add this to the list. This is an amazing accomplishment. The Secretary talked about those fingerprints on hope back in the day, those fingerprints on possibility. Well, I think we've moved past that point where we see boot prints in sand, we see boot prints on projects. And so again, I'm excited to be here, and this is representative of an amazing partnership that you just don't see across the nation and other places. And so with that in mind, I would just like to acknowledge the amazing job of the South Florida Water Management District. Your commitment, your ability to move projects forward, your ability to stay true to mission, and your partnership with the Army Corps is nothing short of outstanding, and represent what's good in this state when you give possibility a chance. So thank you for all your hard work. Scott stole a whole lot of my thunder, but I'll go to it anyway and talk a little bit about my boss. So over the past 4 years, under the leadership of Governor Sanders, the state of Florida has made historic investments to protect our environment and resources and restore the Everglades. And again, as Scott mentioned, obviously in his first few days, he made it clear that for Florida, the quality of our water environment surroundings are foundation to the prosperity of our state. It doesn't just drive tourism, it affects property values, anchors many local economies, and is central to our quality of life. And quite simply, water is part and parcel of Florida's DNA. Protecting it is the smart thing to do, but quite simply, it's the right thing to do. That is why, as noted, on his first few days in office, the governor signed Executive Order 1912, which laid out a comprehensive strategy for environmental protection and secured unprecedented levels of legislative budget support. So since 2019, as noted, $1.7 billion has been dedicated to expediting and making progress on key Everglades restoration projects. That is nearly as much as the previous 12 years combined. As a result of this significant investment, we are witnessing incredible momentum. As Scott noted, again, 50 Everglades projects have broken ground, achieved a major milestone, are finished construction since 2019, including the EAA Reservoir STA. This project we are here to celebrate today, again, is representative of that momentum. Last month, to support the continued momentum, Governor DeSantis renewed his commitment to protecting Florida's environment resources when he signed Executive Order 2306, aptly titled Achieving Even More Now for Florida's Environment, to further advance the protection of Florida's environment and water quality. The new executive order directs strategic action with a focus on accountability, sound science, progress, and collaboration but more importantly, includes a proposed $3.5 billion investment over the next 4 years for Everglades restoration and protection of our water resources, surpassing the historic investments over the past 4 years and making it the highest level of funding in Florida's history. I want that to sink in, the highest level of funding in Florida's history. And I'm pretty sure Florida's been around for a while. So with this renewed support and direction, Florida's environment remain a priority, and we will continue to have the resources to bolster our long-term environmental programs and meet the needs of our diverse state. Continued collaboration with our partners at the district and the Corps remain critical to our success, and I'm excited to join our partners today and stakeholders here today as well as we celebrate this accomplishment. But lastly, I do want to acknowledge that we talk about the hope, we talk about the fingerprints that have shaped policy. Let's talk about and acknowledge all of the hard work of the teams, the staff, and our contractors who are here today who will make this happen. We'll come back magically in a few years and we will cut a ribbon. But in between that window of time, amazing work, amazing progress, amazing dedication, and candidly, some days that most of you would not care to work in will be out here making a difference in changing the landscape for a better Florida. So with that, thank you, and again, congratulations to all.
Thank you so much, Secretary Hamilton. And I'd like to introduce Mr. Adam Gelber. He serves as the Director for the U.S. Department of Interior's Office of Everglades Restoration and the Administrator of the South Florida Ecosystem Restoration Task Force. Mr. Gelber.
Thank you, Todd. Good morning. Again, Adam Gelber, the Director of the OERI. I'm going to stick to my script with the tough crowd of jokes today. I'm going to stick to that. So, good morning. It's humbling as I stand here before you to celebrate the progress we have made in restoring the Everglades and celebrating the groundbreaking of the EAA Reservoir. Like many of the restoration components, this project has been a labor of love for all of you involved and many others that are not able to celebrate with us here today. It is a testament to what can be accomplished when we come together for the greater good. Assistant Secretary Estenos, with her national responsibilities, wishes she was here today to celebrate with you all. And she sends her regards to everyone here. Like all the other speakers today, I would like to acknowledge the extreme hard work and dedication of those elected officials that were able to attend today and those that are celebrating wherever they may be. To the South Florida Water Management District, to the continued putting the pedal down, to our department's federal partners, the community leaders that are here and abroad, and to those stakeholders that continue to hold us all accountable across all of our actions, to keeping tirelessly advocating with the laser focus not only on this project but all of SERP. Your efforts have not gone unnoticed, and the department is grateful for the progress we have made thus far. Following Assistant Secretary Connor's lead, as we look back on what we have accomplished so far, it is important to remember that we still have a road to travel. We must continue to remind ourselves of how complex and fragile the Everglades ecosystem is that requires our care and daily attention. We must continue to remind ourselves there have been tribes inhabiting and thriving throughout the system and truly understand what this means. We must continue to remind ourselves to advance the projects because no one project meets the objective. We must continue to remind ourselves to seek balanced, resilient, sustainable solutions. I am continually reminded by these factors every time I advance into the park and go and recreate into the park. Seeing more in the last 6 months of baby crocodiles in places I have not seen them in the last 30 years of being in the park. The fish and the wildlife, just 91.5 miles due south of here is Flamingo, and how important those goals are every time I go there. Just this past weekend, spending 2 days in the park, we actually had a pompano jump into the boat. It's an amazing place while you're there. And so, while you're there, if you don't have that opportunity, you can really see those benefits. Driving along I-75 right now, if you witness all of the bird foraging and how much of the fish and wildlife depend on everything that we are doing here, and seeing those, you don't have to go to the park, you can see it driving around. It's that simple. Those benefits are really coming along, right? If you are afforded to drive through, you see the benefits to fish and wildlife from the more and more tools and levers that have been constructed through the dedicated funding, through the district governing board and the staff of all of the agencies and the stakeholders that I've mentioned. I imagine a brighter future as we continue to add more to the toolbox and advancing ever closer to Taylor Slough. Again, I want to thank all those that have been at the table to make this project a reality. I urge all of us to continue to work together to continue the momentum doing the work of the American people. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And now I'd like to introduce someone who really needs no introduction. She's the Vice Co-Chair of the Everglades Caucus in the Congress. Please welcome me in joining Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Thank you so much. Move the microphone down for those of us that are vertically challenged. Good morning, everyone. We finally did it. The day that so many of us have waited for is here. Now, I have stood behind many a podium during events like this throughout the life of the Everglades Forever Act implementation and dreams and vision, and many of the faces that have joined me behind this podium have come and gone, and there are a few of you stalwarts who are still here, and it is just absolutely amazing that we are able to come together to celebrate the groundbreaking of the Everglades agricultural area, and I am just so absolutely thrilled to be here. 2 decades of planning, 2 decades of pushing and pulling and lifting and lobbying, all to secure the funding needed to save and restore this amazing habitat. But here we are on the cusp of breaking ground on our crown jewel. We probably did a little drooling in the last few years too. The Crown Jewel SERP project. Some doubted, many doubted, that this could ever be done. They didn't think that we could coalesce and restore what we previously destroyed. But we did. Republicans, Democrats, scientists, students, the Miccosukees, the Seminoles, and people of all political stripes came together to get us here today. State legislators allocated these funds. Declarations are nice, but Joe, I think you can appreciate what I'm about to say. It's legislators that actually make these resources flow to purchase the land needed to build this reservoir, and I'm so proud of our President Joe Biden, who stepped up and became the Everglades president. I worked directly with the Biden administration last spring so that the Army Corps had the funding flexibilities needed to advance construction of the embankment contract. The administration's decision to fast-track construction will save millions in federal dollars and expedite completion by several years. And that was really just the cherry on top of the commitments President Biden made to South Florida. I've mentioned this time and time again, but it's impossible to understate the impact that the $1.1 billion from the Biden infrastructure bill that will have and is already having on our efforts to restore the River of Grass. I'm so thankful, and I'll tell you that some of my colleagues, I am quite sure, were a little frustrated because that $1.1 billion took most of the funding in that account after we passed the infrastructure law. And so, continuing to make progress and make sure, as I always say, that we move with a purpose so that the projects behind me, our colleagues who are anxious for their projects to be funded, that they don't get too impatient. And that's why this progress is really remarkable here today. I'm so thankful to those congressional Republicans who saw past short-term political gain and supported, and it was not a lot of them, but at least it happened, supported or voted to address America's desperate bipartisan infrastructure needs. Millions of Floridians who rely on safe, clean drinking water surely agree that restoring the Everglades checks that important infrastructure box. President Biden also set records the last 2 fiscal years in allocating Everglades funding through the annual appropriations process in the president's budget, culminating with $407 million in the fiscal year 2023 law that was signed into law last month. There was a time, not that long ago with the previous administration, when just $63 million in Everglades funding was requested. That is how far we have come. This fiscal year, a bipartisan group of Everglades Caucus members in the House and Senate asked for $725 million. My partner in the Everglades Caucus, my co-chair, Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart, he is so sorry he couldn't join us today, but he and I were proud to lead that request together. We serve side by side on the Appropriations Committee together, and we will continue to be jointly the champions of this effort. Now look, a goal that ambitious can't be accomplished without passing appropriations, and I thank you for the acknowledgments. When Republicans, frankly, and this is just a cautionary note, when Republicans demand that we return our funding streams to the FY 2022 funding levels across the board, understand that that means cutting Everglades funding by more than $100 million. We cannot let that happen. That would be unacceptable, and I know that this is a day for niceties, but I just want to make sure that I throw that down for everyone to ensure that we lift our voices and prevent us from going backward. It's crucial that Congress hears this message, and with the Everglades president on our side, I am confident, more confident than ever, that we will continue our unprecedented momentum and finish what we started, saving this wonderful treasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Now I'd like to introduce London Rotondo. He's going to read a letter representing from Senator Marco Rubio.
Thank you.
Good morning. It's an honor to be here on behalf of Senator Rubio. Unfortunately, he could not make it today, but he asked that I read a few of his words. So as you know, the EAA is perhaps the most crucial component of the comprehensive Everglades restoration plan. Today's groundbreaking is a monumental moment in the decades-long effort to restore America's Everglades. I am proud to have led the charge to authorize the Central Everglades Planning Project, which includes the EAA Reservoir, and I look forward to its expeditious completion. Once completed, the EAA Reservoir will allow significant reductions in the rate and volume of harmful discharges to the Caloosahatchee and St. Lucie estuaries, and will facilitate corresponding increases in the volume of water that will be sent south to Everglades National Park, Florida, and Biscayne Bays. This reservoir will undoubtedly change the lives of millions of Floridians for the better. I extend my sincere congratulations and gratitude to the Jacksonville District, to the South Florida Water Management District, and the state of Florida for their tireless work in making this long-awaited day a reality. So sincerely, Senator Rubio, U.S. Senate. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Now I'd like to introduce a man who's spent over 50 years as a community serviceman for those around the Glades and surrounding lakeside communities, Mayor of South Bay, Mr. Joe Kyles. Thank you, man. Sir. Thank you, sir.
I say to each and every one of you all, good morning, good afternoon, and thank you for inviting us to be here today. Today I bring with me Ms. Janet Taylor, who have been around the Glades area for years, and along with her today, her daughter, the one who have been fighting for years and years within the Glades area in reference to this wonderful day, and also what have taken place with at Lake Okeechobee. They're also with me today, our staff from the city of South Bay. But most of all, I want to thank the Corps engineer for the wonderful work that you all have did in reference to the things that have taken place in the Glades area, around the Glades area, and around the lake as well. The South Florida Water Management, the chair and the vice chair, thank you. Thank your staff for all the things that you have done. And thank each and every one, especially the contractors, of the wonderful work that you are doing, what you have done, and you continue to do within this particular area. Today I said to you all, the EAA Reservoir ribbon cutting, I know it's not a ribbon cutting today, but we thought it was going to be a ribbon cutting. Today, ribbon cutting of the EAA Reservoir is a treatment to the collaboration process that state and the federal government undertook to get the project off the ground. We as a whole, the ones around the Glades area, well, we have to fight against our brothers and sisters east and west. You know, it's a heartbreaking sometime when you have to start talking about the flow of water. But by the same token, in order to resolve a problem, you have to talk about the problem. Let's see how we can come together and resolve the problem that we have been faced with, east and west, north and south. Today is a wonderful day. In 2017, we went to Tallahassee to ensure that this project did not take an additional farmland, which is necessary to keeping our local economic running. Today, sugarcane farming and process alone provided more than 19,000 jobs and $4.7 million to South Florida economy. I am proud to say that through our effort in Tallahassee, we successful. The reservoir is using land that was purchased by the state many years ago, and our jobs and our Glades community have been protected. It was made possible through the many community members, organizations that came together, ensuring our voice that we was heard. Local pastors, business leaders, farmers, and community organizations like Glades Lives Matter and the Guardians of the Glades. We appreciate the state and the federal government who stood up to the Glades community, allowing us to have a voice in whatever have taken place around the lake. The reservoir shows that we can protect the Everglades and our local jobs. And I just want to say to each and every one of you all, thank you, we appreciate you, and may God bless you.
Thank you so much, Mayor. I'd like to introduce the CEO of the Everglades Foundation and longtime proponent of the Everglades restoration. Welcome, Mr. Eric Eichenberg.
Good afternoon, everyone. I was driving up 27 from Miami this morning and was in a moment of reflection. It has been a number of years to get to this point, and there's a lot of folks under this tent who have made this day possible. There's also folks that are not here with us, and I want to acknowledge just a few of them in these remarks. I recall in January of 2016, shortly after experiencing the 50,000 acres of dead seagrass floating on Florida Bay due to the salinity levels in the fishing capital of the world, going into the office of Sandy Moret in Islamorada and talking to Sandy about the need to send water south. And as I was sitting across from him at his desk, he reached into his file cabinet and pulled out a 1986 letter from Bob Graham as governor, talking about the need to restore the Everglades and send water south. And he looked at me and said, nope, we've done it, we've tried it. And at that moment, it was a sense of concern that a leading fishing guide, someone who has dedicated himself to the waters of Florida, was demonstrating concern that we weren't going to do it. And I remember telling Sandy, we need you in this fight. And from that point, this whole battle cry of sending water south, this desire of reconnecting Lake Okeechobee down to Florida Bay, to have the water flow as God intended it to the south, to support the 21st century economy in Florida that is built on tourism and fishing and boating and real estate. And 2016 continued, and it was August the 9th, 2016, in a community center in downtown Stuart, where the incoming Senate president stood in front of his constituents who were plagued by toxic algae from Lake Okeechobee. When the water rises in the lake, the gates on the St. Lucie being opened, and the community being ravaged by this horrendous smell, this toxic water that was killing the fish, killing the jobs, and was a direct threat to human health. And it was Joe Negron that stood in that community hall, a profile of courage to say that we are going to build a reservoir and we're going to redirect the flow of water to the south. And Joe Negron, surrounded by the River Kids, by Jackie Thurlippish, by Mark Perry, by countless others in Stewart and Martin County, rallied behind their leader, not just for their community, but for the greater community, for the Caloosahatchee and the Southwest community, for Sanibel, for Fort Myers, for Cape Coral, for Bonita Springs, for Naples, for Marco Island, for the Florida Keys, for Southeast Florida. Joe Negron stood for all of those people to say we are going to do what was promised back in 2000. When Bill Clinton put his signature on the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan in December of 2000, the second project in the Water Resources Development Act of that year was to build a reservoir south of Lake Okeechobee. This project has had more twists that Chubby Checker would be proud. But here we are today. Here we are today because of realtors, because of fishing captains, because of boat manufacturers, because of those who own restaurants and hotels, those who thrive in a tourism-based economy. They stood up and made their voices heard. They went to Tallahassee. They went to Washington. They told our elected officials that the time was now to make a difference, to make change, to redirect the way water flows, and to store clean and send that water south. This project is the crown jewel. This project is the linchpin for America's Everglades. This project, for once and for all, will fix the sins of previous generations. And it will enable our future and our economy to thrive. So I think about the river kids. I think about the numerous realtors in Martin County and in Lee County who came together in 2015 and 2016 to make a difference. The chambers of commerce on both the east and west coasts that said that this is at the core not only an environmental issue, but it's a business issue. It's an economic issue. Their voices are heard today with the groundbreaking of this project. So, Mr. President, we salute you for your courage, your determination, and for not backing down for the pressures back in 2017. I also want to acknowledge the fact that this is a bipartisan effort at the core of it. And I wish Clay Shaw was here today. I wish Bob Graham was here today, because they established the root of the success that we've been achieving for the last 23 years, a bipartisan effort. If crocodiles and alligators can live in the Everglades, then Republicans and Democrats can do it. And in a time of divisiveness, this issue unifies us. It unifies us to the core. To have a governor that's leading, in Tallahassee, and to have a congresswoman who's leading within the Democratic caucus, within the United States Congress, to make sure that the Everglades is restored. This is a national treasure. We thank you for your service on the Appropriations Committee, for the hundreds of millions of dollars, the billions of dollars that are now flowing from Washington. This is a 50-50 marriage. This is a marriage between the state of Florida and the federal government. We have to have both sides leaning in, operating with a sense of urgency, so that we can pass on to the next generation something that's better, something that's good, and something that we've all worked to restore. So I am delighted and honored to be with each and every one of you who have spent hours, sweat, and tears to get to this point. When this reservoir is built, 2/3 of the water in this reservoir will be used for the environment, to make sure we have a drinking water supply for a growing population in South Florida. It will cut back on those harmful discharges by more than half. And it will provide 1/3 of the water to the agricultural industry right here in this community. All sectors, all stakeholders in this effort are taken care of. This has been a long time getting to this point. The EAA Reservoir is finally here. It's finally in front of us. Each and every one of you under this tent, and those that are not, made this possible. To the contractors who have the responsibility now of building this project, we are your biggest cheerleaders. We're rooting for you. We want this project built by the end of the decade, and then we will pass it on to a generation that will thrive in America's Everglades. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Eric. Thank you for your remarks. Now I'd like to introduce the Executive Director for Captains for Clean Water, huge advocates for water quality throughout Central and South Florida, Captain Daniel Andrews.
So I'm one of only 3 people here today that's standing between you and Big Nick's barbecue that's waiting for us in the parking lot. So I'll be brief. Captains for Clean Water was founded 7 years ago in a groundswell effort after the 2016 water crisis. When we were first getting involved with this, we were often told that sending water south was impossible. We even heard that Senate Bill 10 was dead on arrival. But look how far we've come. In the spirit of collaboration, the keystone project of Everglades restoration, the EAA Reservoir, is now underway. This project has been supported by both Democrats and Republicans, both the state and the federal government, and stakeholders from all across South Florida, and thousands of citizens that just want clean water. This is proof that when we work together, the impossible can be achieved. In 2016, when Senator Negron came forward and said, I want to build this project, to now, 7 years later, that period of time was the same period of time from when JFK said, I want to put a man on the moon, an American on the moon, to the time that Neil Armstrong stepped down and made those famous first steps. And at times, this project seemed like it was maybe a little bit more challenging than getting somebody to the moon. But here we are today. And much like that first lunar landing, the whole world is watching us. This is a race. This is a race to finish this project, to get clean water flowing south, algae blooms out of our estuaries, and our economy to be resilient. And with that, I'll leave you with the words of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. The Everglades is a test. And if we pass, we may get to keep the planet. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Appreciate those words. Now I'd like to introduce the Assistant Director for Government Community Affairs for the Florida Farm Bureau Federation, Mr. Jake Foytik.
Thanks. Good afternoon. Thank you, Colonel Booth, Lieutenant Colonel Polk, the district, and Army Corps staff for the opportunity to speak on behalf of our farmers today. I'm Jake Foytik, the Assistant Director of Government Community Affairs for the Florida Farm Bureau Federation. Today is a historic occasion here in the Everglades agricultural area that would not be possible without the hard work and dedication of so many stakeholders. This groundbreaking ceremony is more than 23 years in the making, and as Florida farmers, we were proud to join other stakeholders in 2000 when Congress passed and the President signed the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan. Since that time, the farming community's support for these projects, including the EAA Reservoir, has never wavered. Farmers in the EAA have cooperated, collaborated, and worked with government and non-governmental agencies in supporting this project. Here are some of the highlights of farmers' involvement in the development of the EAA Reservoir. Starting in before 2000, farmers have served on the Corps' restudy and Governor's Commission generating SERP and have participated in various project delivery teams. Farmers have advocated for SERP authorizations and supported funding in Congress and the Florida Legislature for the EAA Reservoir and all other SERP and SEP projects and components. Farmers have cooperatively relinquished over 160,000 acres of productive farmland needed for ecosystems restoration, which is 5 times larger than the city of Fort Lauderdale. Farmers have collaboratively worked with government at all levels to consolidate public ownership of lands needed for this restoration. Farmers voluntarily vacated leases early to allow for expeditious project implementation, including the very land that is needed for this project here today. Hundreds of millions in special taxes have been paid in by farmers to help fund Everglades restoration and assist in Everglades research. For our part, we have been working daily to reduce phosphorus in the water flowing south from our farms in the EAA, more than doubling the required 25% annual reduction, resulting in an annual average reduction of phosphorus of 57%, dating back to when the program began in 1996. As a result of this program implementing science-based best management practices, 100% of Everglades National Park is meeting the strict 10 parts per billion standard, making it the cleanest the Everglades has been in decades. Family farms all across Florida continue to work hard to provide environmental benefits reduce nutrient and water use, and provide habitat and green space. We accomplish all this while striving to provide food security for our state and nation's safe, abundant, and affordable food supply. I would like to once again thank our farmers and our leaders in Jacksonville, Tallahassee, and Washington for making today a reality, and look forward to continued progress in restoring South Florida's ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, I want to introduce our last speaker here, but he's a man who's the epitome of leadership and partner in every sense of the word. Mr. Drew Bartlett, Executive Director, South Florida Water Management District.
Thanks, everyone. I'll be brief. First of all, it's quite a scene seeing this mountain in Florida. And I really want to thank you. See the logo. It's Phillips and Jordan. They're the contractor that's building the stormwater treatment area, the wetland marsh associated with this project. And they are staying on schedule. They have built this through a pandemic and a supply chain issue. And if you know Drew Bartlett, you like staying on schedule. And so they are pleasing me right now. And I really appreciate, and when you talk about supply chain, what is this mountain? This is granite. Where does granite not exist? Florida, right? And so this is coming from Georgia via train to Indiantown and then via truck to this site. So we can build the essential safety feature for the EAA Reservoir, which is seepage management for the first berms. So thank you, and it's just a great site, and thank you for the communication staff for putting that behind me so I can get some good pictures. So this started, really, I mean, it started in 2000, but really it got traction in 6 years ago in 2017 when someone had the idea of Senate Bill 10, and Senator Negron, I remember those meetings, and those were challenging times, but I really appreciate your leadership and Senator Bradley's leadership in shepherding a bill that needed to be worked on. You had to make some tough decisions, but you needed to pass a bill or we wouldn't be here today. And you did that, and I very much appreciate that and all the efforts of all the stakeholders working on that bill, making tough decisions, creating a reservoir project that works for everybody and restores the Everglades. So I really appreciate that. I also want to, I know when that bill was passed, then it was turned straight over to the Water Management District and said, get busy. So I also really want to thank the folks at the Water Management District that put the 203 together to send to Congress, to the Corps, so they could submit it to Congress. And I want to thank John Mitnick, Ava Velez, Matt Morrison, Akina Wosina, Walter Wilcox, Jennifer Leeds, and I know there's a lot more. Thank you for skipping Christmas that year, and thank you for skipping Thanksgiving that year too, because that had to get there because we needed to make WRDA 2018, and we did. And we also made WRDA 2020 as well. But now here we are today, and this year, I mean, when have we turned a concept and an idea in Senate Bill 10 into finishing a wetland treatment system and starting a massive, incredible reservoir in 6 years? That doesn't happen. So do not ever doubt the folks at the Jacksonville District. I see you, Colonel Kirk, that was there at the time. The Jacksonville District and the South Florida Water Management District. We're ready to get busy. We're going to get stuff done. And this is it. This is what we're going to get done. So I am done talking because I want to get started. Let's get these shovels, Colonel Kirk.
Thank you, Drew. Thank you so much. And really, this will end the formal portion. I'm going to ask all the speakers and the governing board from South Florida Water Management District to come on forward. We're going to do our turning of dirt, and then everyone can come on up as well. Make sure buses will leave in about 10 minutes for food. Make sure you also please sign the wooden maps back there. All right, thank you.